The winter of 1942 descended upon Stalingrad with a vengeance. It was more than just a season of cold. It was an active enemy, a relentless force that sought to break the will of any soldier caught within its icy grip. The biting winds and relentless blizzards became another weapon in the arsenal of war. On the frozen banks of the Volga, Stalingrad became a haunting synonym for suffering, a place where hope seemed to die with each passing day. The once vibrant city was now a desolate landscape of shattered dreams and broken lives, a testament to the destructive power of war. German soldiers, once confident and brimming with the arrogance of a seemingly unstoppable force, now froze in inadequate summer uniforms, their bodies racked with hunger, their spirits broken by the relentless siege. They were surrounded not only by the enemy but by the unforgiving elements. Every ruined building became a fortress, a desperate stronghold in a sea of destruction, and every street transformed into a potential grave, a silent testament to the brutal cost of urban warfare. The very ground seemed to soak up the blood and tears of those who fought and died there. In a moment of stark realization, a German soldier wrote home, his words echoing the despair that gripped the entire army. "We are no longer men. The humanity had been stripped away, leaving behind only hollow shells. We are ghosts," he continued, "haunting the ruins of a city that has already died." They were spectral figures lost in a landscape of devastation, forever bound to the memory of a city consumed by war. The fighting was brutal, a savage, close-quarters struggle, room to room, floor to floor, a desperate battle for every inch of territory. New soldiers fresh from training often survived only hours at the front, their lives extinguished in the relentless meat grinder of Stalingrad. Their youthful idealism was quickly shattered by the harsh realities of war. The Soviets, driven by Stalin's infamous order to take not one step back, fought with a desperate ferocity, defending their city with unwavering resolve. They knew what was at stake, and they were prepared to pay any price to protect their homeland. They knew the city's ruins intimately, striking from hidden sewers and fortified basements, vanishing back into the white labyrinth of snow-covered rubble and shattered buildings. A Soviet sniper, a master of stealth and patience, might wait for days, concealed amongst the ruins, for a single decisive shot. Stalingrad was a brutal war of attrition, a relentless test of endurance, where the only question was who could endure more suffering, who would sacrifice everything in the name of victory. The end came not with a final glorious charge, but with a slow, agonizing surrender, a gradual crumbling of resistance in the face of overwhelming odds. Field Marshal Paulus, defying Hitler's explicit orders to fight to the last man, surrendered what remained of his once mighty Sixth Army, a decision that marked a turning point in the war. The survivors who finally emerged from the ruins were broken, emaciated, mere specters of war, their bodies and minds scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. Of the nearly 300,000 German soldiers encircled within the city, only 91,000 surrendered to the Red Army, and of those, fewer than 6,000 would ever see their homeland of Germany again. A grim testament to the devastating losses suffered at Stalingrad. Stalingrad was far more than just a battle. It was a pivotal turning point in the Second World War, a moment etched forever in history, carved in ice and blood. The long-held myth of German invincibility, carefully cultivated by Nazi propaganda, was shattered on the unforgiving Russian steppe, buried beneath the snow and the wreckage of war. The long, bloody and arduous road to Berlin, the heart of the Nazi regime, had finally begun, paved with the sacrifices made at Stalingrad. The entire world watched with bated breath as the seemingly unstoppable tide of war began to shift, as the balance of power tilted in favor of the Allied forces. Stalingrad's ruins, once a symbol of utter devastation, gradually became a powerful symbol of hope, but also a stark reminder of the terrible and immeasurable cost of victory, a cost paid in human lives and shattered dreams. The very soul of the Second World War was forever and irrevocably changed in the fiery crucible of Stalingrad, a battle that would resonate through history. Across the Channel, a different storm gathered, a tempest not of wind and rain, but of human will, one of steel and resolve, forged in the fires of oppression and fueled by the yearning for freedom. The Allied forces were poised, ready to unleash their might against the Nazi regime. In England, the Allies meticulously prepared for Operation Overlord, the ambitious and daring plan for the liberation of Europe from Nazi tyranny. Every detail was scrutinized, every contingency planned for, as the weight of the free world rested on their shoulders. The target, Normandy's heavily fortified coast, a seemingly impenetrable barrier known as the Atlantic Wall, would ultimately decide the fate of the war and the future of the continent. The Germans had spent years fortifying this coastline, confident in its ability to repel any invasion. On June 6, 1944, under the cover of a pre-dawn sky, young men from across the globe, representing a multitude of nations, faced the terrifying unknown as they approached the French shore. Their hearts pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander, bore the immense responsibility of this operation. He knew the inherent risks and the potential cost in human lives, yet he remained resolute in his conviction that this was a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. As the landing craft relentlessly pounded through the rough waves of the English Channel, a potent cocktail of dread mixed with the unpleasant effects of seasickness gripped the soldiers. The reality of what lay ahead began to sink in. At Omaha Beach, the meticulously crafted plan began to unravel with brutal efficiency. The naval bombardment, intended to soften the German defenses, largely missed its mark, leaving the enemy's guns ominously silent and waiting. The ramps dropped with a deafening clang, and men, barely more than boys, fell in droves before even reaching the water's edge. The pristine sea quickly turned crimson, stained with the blood of the fallen. Amidst the deafening chaos and carnage, leaders emerged from the ranks, captains, sergeants, and even privates, men who refused to succumb to despair and refused to die uselessly in the surf. They rallied their comrades with courage and determination. In a moment of desperate inspiration, one officer yelled above the din, "There are only two kinds of people on this beach, the dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here!" His words ignited a spark of defiance in the hearts of the men. Inch by agonizing inch, they crawled forward, seeking any semblance of cover, even using the bodies of their fallen comrades as shields against the relentless hail of bullets. They painstakingly breached barbed wire entanglements, scaled treacherous bluffs under constant fire, and by the end of that long and bloody day, the Allies had managed to secure a tenuous foothold on the shores of Normandy. The seemingly impenetrable Atlantic Wall had been breached, a testament to the unwavering courage and sacrifice of the Allied soldiers. The liberation of France and ultimately Europe had finally begun. The survivors, forever scarred by the horrors they had witnessed, would never be able to fully erase the sights and sounds of that day from their memories. They had walked through the very gates of hell and, against all odds, found a glimmer of hope on the other side. D-Day was far more than just a military victory. It was a pivotal turning point in the war, marking the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany and its reign of terror across Europe. The entire world watched with bated breath as the Allied forces pushed inland, advancing step by bloody step through the French countryside. The cost in lives was immense, but the door to Europe had been forced open, offering a path to liberation. The longest day, as it came to be known, became an enduring symbol of extraordinary courage, unwavering determination, and ultimate sacrifice in the face of overwhelming adversity. The tide of war had irrevocably turned in the West. With renewed vigor and unwavering resolve, the Allies pressed forward, determined to finish what they had so bravely begun on the beaches of Normandy. The liberation of an entire continent was now fully underway. The world would never be the same after that fateful day. The seemingly impenetrable gates of Fortress Europe had finally been breached, opening the way for the Allied forces to advance into the heart of Nazi-occupied territory. The long and arduous march to Berlin had truly begun. The hopes and dreams of millions of oppressed people now rested on the weary shoulders of those courageous men who had stormed the beaches of Normandy and paved the way for freedom. In the Pacific, war raged across islands and jungles, not cities or fields. The US adopted island hopping, seizing key islands, bypassing strongholds, inching toward Japan. Each battle, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima, was a nightmare of heat, disease, and relentless combat. Surrender was unthinkable. The fighting was total. At Iwo Jima, Japanese defenders turned the island into a fortress of tunnels, making Americans pay for every inch. The flag raising on Mount Suribachi became a symbol, but victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands dead on both sides. Each island won brought the Allies closer to Japan, but at a price measured in blood. As the Allies closed in, the Axis powers crumbled. Mussolini, once the Duce, was deposed, captured, and executed by his own people, his body displayed as a warning. In Berlin, Hitler retreated to his bunker as the city burned. Surrounded by ruin, he issued orders to phantom armies. On April 30th, 1945, with the Soviets at the gates, Hitler and Eva Braun took their own lives. Their bodies were burned, their dreams of empire reduced to ash. The architects of tyranny had fallen. Europe was left in ruins, but the nightmare was ending. The world would reckon with the horrors unleashed. The war in Europe was over, but its scars would last for generations. A new era was about to begin. In the Pacific Theater, Japan remained defiant, refusing to surrender unconditionally despite mounting losses. An Allied invasion of the Japanese mainland, codenamed Operation Downfall, loomed as a potential bloodbath. But a new, terrifying weapon, born in the utmost secrecy in the labs of the Manhattan Project, gave President Truman, newly in office, a terrible and agonizing choice: to use this weapon or proceed with a costly invasion. On August 6, 1945, Hiroshima was vaporized, vanishing in a blinding flash of unimaginable power. Tens of thousands died instantly, their lives extinguished in the blink of an eye. Survivors, burned and broken, wandered through a landscape of fire and ash, a scene of utter devastation. Black rain, laden with radioactive fallout, fell upon the ruins, and the suffering, both immediate and long-term, had only just begun. 3 days later, Nagasaki too met the same horrific fate, becoming another symbol of atomic destruction. The world was forced to confront the unprecedented power and unspeakable horror of the dawn of the atomic age. Was the use of such a weapon necessary to end the war, or was it an unforgivable act of barbarity? The debate continues to this day. For the survivors, the hibakusha, the physical and emotional scars were lifelong, a constant reminder of the horrors they had endured. The bombings brought a swift end to the Second World War, but simultaneously began a new era defined by fear and the looming threat of nuclear annihilation. The atomic age dawned not with a bang, but in the eerie silence and long shadows cast by mushroom clouds. Humanity had crossed a threshold, unleashing a force it could never truly control, and the world, irrevocably changed, would never be the same again. The atomic bombs and Soviet entry into the war broke Japan's will. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced surrender, the first time his people heard his voice. Across the world, cities erupted in celebration, VJ Day. In Times Square, a sailor kissed a nurse, capturing the joy and relief of a world at peace. On September 2nd, aboard the USS Missouri, Japan signed the surrender. General MacArthur spoke of hope for a better world. Above, American planes roared in silent tribute. The most destructive war in history was over. The silence that followed was heavy with grief and relief. The world could finally exhale. A new chapter was about to begin. Victory brought relief, but also the challenge of rebuilding a shattered world. Cities lay in ruins, millions displaced, nations bankrupt. Leaders met at Tehran, Yalta, and Potsdam to shape the future. The United Nations was born, a fragile hope for lasting peace. The seeds of the Cold War were sown even as the old war ended. The world was forever changed, interconnected as never before. Dialogue, not destruction, became the new ideal. From the ashes, a new global order emerged, imperfect but essential. The war's end brought new struggles: survival, recovery, and rebuilding. Holocaust survivors and refugees faced the daunting task of starting over. Across continents, cities, and lives were rebuilt, brick by brick. The Marshall Plan fueled Europe's recovery, forging peace through prosperity. The scars ran deep, but a new generation channeled resilience into progress. The world moved from darkness to color, from war to hope. Rebuilding was about more than cities. It was about families, trust, and the future. The human spirit proved it could rise from the ashes. The Second World War is history, but its legacy endures. The generation that fought is fading, but their stories remain, in memorials, letters, and memories. Their courage and sacrifice shape the world we inherit. The war's lessons about freedom, power, and compassion are ours to remember. We live in the world they built from ruin. Their story is now our responsibility to carry forward. The choices we make will define the history yet to be written. Will we remember the lessons